I tell you what, if it wasn't for the fund, the pay would be low, wouldn't it?
I work here for the fund.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be the one.
First off, 46 years.
46 years. Did you play no more?
How long you want to wait to do?
People just, well, I don't know. They just, but they don't know.
Come in a couple of minutes. Just tell them you got to call them.
Yes, it is. And a lot of people say, and
Guys, we're supposed to start at 5. We're waiting on Councilmember Butler. He is behind an accident, so we're going to wait to about 10 after to get started, with or without him.
you told them to do it again, so they double.
You know he didn't say he didn't deserve it.
Me too.
He's drunk now. Yeah. What happened to the big grind fans that
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, what happened to those things? What's wrong? I tell you what, back when Harold ran the place, it was just the way it was. I love you. I said, well, let me see it, man. Don't just tell me, let me see it.
Yeah, you approach it with caution.
She tickles the fire out of me. She really does.
I couldn't get who it is. Let me think.
Yeah.
No?
Laster has. He did it. The banking at Daytona and Talent, Daytona is by far the largest. Like that. When you ride the apron, I've done this. When you ride the aprons, when you look out the window, side window, all you see is asphalt in your face. That's how steep it is. You have to run 100 to stay on.
You knew she was coming fast.
She goes down to the valley.
They still do. Yeah, well, you see where somebody got killed down there a couple weeks ago? It's been a couple months now. Died. Yeah, yeah. Yes. Oh, sure. Sure. I figured so. Good. Good. All right, let's get started. Good evening. We will call the May 4th work session to order. I'd like to welcome all of you here. At this time, would recognize Mr. Harold Owen. Harold.
Mayor, members of the council, Mayor, you may want to mention too about Ms. Hikes.
Yes, Ms. Hikes is under the weather. She will not be here tonight or tomorrow night. With that being said, we'll be one short.
But watching on TV, we believe. So, Mayor, for some time now, we have been working with, we all are conscious of the relationship we have with the New Leaf Society on a number of functions they've done throughout the city, from east to west, north to south, in terms of the beautification projects. And we've continued to befriend a relationship with them. And tonight, Red Davis, who is the president of the New Leaf Society, is here to speak about another initiative, a really pretty exciting initiative that they want to talk to us about and talk to the council about. So, Rhett, it's good to have you.
Thank you, Harold.
Welcome out.
Brochure.
Thank you.
Open that up to the
Thank you,
center.
sir.
Thanks, Rhett.
Right. You're welcome.
Thanks, Bud.
I had a PowerPoint presentation in 4 or 5 pages, and then Renee got me in the hall and said, "Blessed are the brief, for they shall be invited back."
Great advice.
Excellent.
We had a pastor one summer at our church, visiting the pastor, and he said, "You know what it means when the pastor puts his watch on the podium?" Absolutely nothing. Anyway, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I will be brief. I'm president of the New Leaf Society, as some of you may know that, and first and foremost, I want to thank the city and the city staff for all their help and support since we started in 2007. This relationship and cooperation we've had with the city of Burlington has been phenomenal. We've got over 6 miles of landscape gateways now, from University Drive to Rockwood O'Neill, in front of City Park, front of Turntine now, and we're getting ready to do some more projects in some of the parks. Fairchild, we've been working there, and just got a request to do North Park, do some landscaping out there. And as you can see on our map, we cover from Gibsonville all the way to Mebane. This just isn't a Burlington organization. Mr. Gant, who this vision, birthed this vision, wanted this to be a countywide effort. Today, we've raised $1.1 million of private dollars to do this. We realize the government doesn't have the resources to do it, and we've garnered probably $2 to $3 million in grants and also in-kind money. Our biggest project, CeeLo and I were talking about the other day, was the railroad there in Glen Raven. I talked to them about what an eyesore that was, that trestle there, and met with the railroad, and within 30 days they committed $910,000 to restore the railroad trestle, and we also landscaped it too. So that's how we work, and it's collaboration with the city and other funding partners. And I just want to thank you and your staff members that have been so supportive. We have 3 of your staff members that meet with us once a month when we meet. Harold and I have been talking about this project here at Willowbrook. We're making a proposal to you that's come about. We've been working on this for about 2 years now. We first started out with Harold looking at Willowbrook Park to enhance it, to restore it, and do some renovation there, similar to what they've done over in Greensboro along their floodplain parks there. They have a city arboretum there, which is a beautiful, very well-used green space, very similar to what Willowbrook is. Harold asked me to meet with Diener because obviously that creek, Brown Creek, runs through there, and there could be some issues with stream litigation because it's in the Jordan Lake Reservoir watershed. We all deal with that, and I do even on my other job I work with. So I'm very familiar with that. Met with Diener, walked through the park with them. They gave us the green light to work on this park and do some upgrades to it. And so with the city's support, Diener's green light, we also met with Parks and Recreation. Tony went before his board. I saw him here earlier. There you are. His board approved it last week unanimously. Thank you very much for that. We're going through the process here of getting all of them. Clearing all the hurdles we can before we invest our money in this. We also approached the American Legion. American Legion. No, and I think you know where their building is there on Church Street. And the part what we're looking at working on is from Church Street all the way up to Front Street, this entire Willowbrook Park. And an integral part of it is the American Legion corner and the land which they own on the other side of the creek, which is in grass. The city maintains it. In fact, the city donated it to the American Legion at some point in time, 40, 50 years ago, I'm not sure. But all that land right there that no one's showing you belongs to the American Legion HUD. The New Leaf has made an offer to them to buy that. We have given them an offer, and their board of directors has accepted it. And it will expire July 31st if we don't act on it. So we've made an offer to purchase that land, to use it for parking, and perhaps at some point in time some type of restroom facility there. What we're proposing is to go in and pretty much leave it like it is, but put in some pathways, walkways. They're using it now. There's mud pathways. Going in and putting a walkway there for pedestrian travel, walk the dog, whatever you want to do. Also putting in plant collections. If you've ever been to Greensboro Arboretum, you'll see plant collections of azaleas and hostas and plants that love floodplain areas. Restoring the creek bank. The creek is deteriorating in many ways. The road is very close to falling in, maybe 5 or 6 feet away on one end now. Restoring that. Diener likes this. There's erosion down in the park, and there's some other issues that we're looking at stabilizing, putting it back. We're not talking about paving anything like this. We're talking about cleaning it up, restoring it, making plant collections, investing in public art, maybe some more gazebos, maybe public art. New Leaf is very into public art purchases. You have functions down there now. So we're looking at a big commitment financially, anywhere from 3 to 5 years investment for us using private dollars. We feel like we can capture more donations if we do something of this magnitude. We'd like to gift this to the city. New Leaf, of course, will pay for it and install it, and we'll set back money to help maintain it too. We do not want to make a financial burden on the city. We're looking at this also as connectivity to downtown. We're very much interested in revitalizing downtown Burlington, the whole area down here, connecting not only our parks, green space, greenways. You can see that in where we're investing our money. Harold came to me a year ago and said, our community center, which is Williams High School, looks like Central Prison without the fence, Ronnie. So we put $24,000 into new trees around that campus to beautify that. Look how much we did in front of City Park, coming on downtown. This is just another step downtown. We put $50,000 into your planters 2 years ago downtown. That worked with Downtown Corporation. We're getting ready to plant them again at our expense next week. We've got 32 volunteers lined up to replant all your planters downtown. We've invested a lot in trees and shrubs downtown too. So we're looking at this step-by-step process of connecting parks, connecting people, making this place more attractive to live. And this was brought home to me yesterday. Yeah, 2 more minutes. I was at an event, young girl graduating from college and going off to school, and sat at the table with two doctors. One of them just moved here to the prenatal clinic. The other is a pediatrician in Chapel Hill. And I said, you're the commuting doctors. I understand all our doctors are living in Chapel Hill, Greensboro, and Durham, and commuting here. She said, no. We bought a home here in Burlington because it looks so pretty here. I said, you're kidding. We're building a house They're building a house out at McIntosh. And I said, why'd you do that? She said, that University Drive is gorgeous. I said, it's working. Economic development, people want to live here because we're changing the way our community looks. The realtors say, number one place new people want to look at is our historic area. New Leaf took over Fountain Place, completely redid that. We probably put $40,000 in, bringing that back up to speed again. Makes it look good. So this park is just another step in working in this community. And I'm asking you tonight to see if you support this or not, the idea. We don't go into details. We haven't done the details. We've hired the landscape architect from Greensboro who did the arboretum there. He's on retainer. The city's already done the survey. We've already gone through a lot of hoops already. And the final one is your approval. And that way, if we get it, we will purchase this property from American Legion. And the benefit from that is I think we're going to help the veterans out too. So I think
Now, with that the whole property, the Willowbrook, does that include the house?
No, we're not offering to buy the house. We're going to buy the property that is east of the creek. We will, as part of our agreement, we will re-landscape the house and the parking lot and build them a new sign and clean up that whole corner.
Okay.
We got rock work down here. It's old city rock work. It's very attractive. It used to be tree roots and everything. It's degraded. And it's on the other end. We're just talking about elevating this facility. And I call it restoration, which is what I call it. And making it an attraction that people want to go, come downtown, go to, just like they do the Carousel City Park. Let's go to the Arboretum.
So it goes from Church Street to Edgewood to Davis to Front?
All the way.
All the way across?
All the way across.
Good.
And it's, I think, 16, 17 acres there. Some areas we can't do anything with because of floodplain, but some areas we can. Diener has been very cooperative and offered us assistance the whole time we do this.
Are they going to be as cordial to you if we go to City Park and upgrade that area?
So far, so good.
Thank you. So what do you need from us, Harold?
Well, let me add one more thing. As part of the long-range process, the master plan, you see a ton of things about greenways and connectivity. Our conversations go back at least 2 years. What this actually gets us, if you look at our community, years ago, sidewalks were built, most of our sidewalks in the middle of our city. Until the last 8 to 10 years, and I give this council credit, we've been able to expand sidewalks. You will be able to take sidewalks and really connectivity from downtown all the way down Front Street into Willowbrook Park. And this is what the one challenge may be, but this is the opportunity we have. Connect potentially to the sidewalks on Church Street. Work with DOT for a safe passage, and this is a challenge, to get across Church Street. Get to City Park. Go down by City Park, you hit Mebane Street, and you have sidewalks from Mebane Street from East Burlington to Westbrook. From a connectivity standpoint. I know we talk a lot about greenways. Greenways are a lot longer in terms of getting, because you got to get right-of-ways, you got to get easements. And that's much more difficult when you've already got areas of the cities that's already developed. The advantage about this deal, we have this opportunity for this property here. And it can be something really special. This can set this community. If you haven't been to the Arboretum in Greensboro or anything of this nature, it can be special. And I think tonight what we're asking for council, there's no allocation of funds, but for your blessings for us to continue to work with New Leaf to start putting this thing in motion.
Our plan is if you give us a green light, if this is something you think the city would benefit from, we will purchase this piece of property by July 31st. Before that, we plan to have some neighborhood meetings. At the end of May, 1st of June, to let all the neighbors know and get input as to what they'd like to see and what they want. What would be of value to them. This is not us lording over some project over. We intend to get neighborhood input and go with that, because our architect wants to hear from them as we do too. So.
Harold, can we just nod and say yes, or we have to put this on the agenda tomorrow night for a formal vote to give them the green light?
Mayor, I'd like to make a suggestion that we actually put it on the agenda tomorrow night and have it some formality. It would appear in the minutes here too, but I think some degree would give the formality probably Rhett needs when you start talking to people and maybe applying for grants, what have you. That would be my suggestion if everybody else is in agreement.
I think it would also help with the finalizing the sale of that property. Now, Red asked me, we've gone back, we think that property was deeded over to the American Legion sometime around 1940s, before mine and your time, Bob, and Tony's time. I'm not sure why. It was, I don't know, but it was.
So, okay, I got that. So we want to put it on the consent agenda, or do we want to ask Rhett to come back for a 2-minute intro to this project for tomorrow night?
Well, we would like to gift it back to the city, the property.
Deed it to the city.
They're going to deed it back to us.
Right. I got that.
Everybody thinks it's part of Willowbrook Park.
After they made it.
That's right.
So you're maintaining?
After they made it.
Yeah, we're taking care of it anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you guys want to do?
I think we put it on a consent agenda and move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
We put it on the consent agenda then. You all right with that, Bob?
That's good.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Davis? Thank you very much. We appreciate what you're doing for the city as well. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda would be the item B, budget 2015. Mr. Irwin.
Gentlemen, let me start off by saying how much I appreciate all the time you have spent with especially with me and staff as over the last 4 or 5 months as we talk about the budget. There's the budget process is something that obviously goes on for some time, and it's nothing that starts in the last 30 days, and but it begins in early January with staff, and as we talk about where you all want to see the city go, we try to template the budget on that philosophy. And that's where we are today as we go forward. At the same time, we try to be very realistic about our revenue projections. And at the same time, we try to attempt to keep up with what goes on at the state level. I can't promise you that's we have that down pat yet. I think crossover was April 30th. The number of bills. I met with all the metro mayors on Wednesday. We heard from different legislatures concerning some of the various issues that they're considering how to impact the cities. There seems to be no consensus on the sales tax issue we talked about. This has very little traction. It appears at the House level. There's been some different conversations at the Senate level. Numbers vary substantially. I'm not sure where that's going to go, but there are a number of other issues that quite often we email you and reference this out there, from development options to aesthetic controls for building, for inspection issues. There's a ton of issues we're dealing with that may or may not have much to do with the budget itself, so we'll see from there. As I said, we talked to you all a great deal about the budget is complicated in the sense that we always talk about spending, but you can't spend unless you have the revenues, and how do we attempt to get the revenues, and where are our revenue options, and how can we diversify our base as much as possible to provide the basic services that people in the community want. You heard Rhett's comment a while ago about the young lady moving here. We as a staff do not very often hear about anyone wanting less services. Quite frankly, the only time I get a call about somebody wanting less services is they may have stopped and got a speeding ticket, and they don't want that. People want their grass mowed. They want they're very much involved with what the council has done recently with minimal housing. They want their streets paved. They appreciate their water and sewer services. They not appreciate when something goes wrong, then they appreciate it an awful lot. They appreciate our response when we have inclement weather. They appreciate public safety. They appreciate the cultural activities. And so we try to balance what we hear and you all hear from what you tell us from the public in terms of what we can attempt to do. So the budget process is one that's involved an awful lot of that. You'll note this year we see a 2.4% increase over last year in terms of operational expenses. The proposed budget does not include a property tax increase. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, the last property tax increase here was 2006. I can't promise you that something can happen in perpetuity. We are working with the county. We've had several discussions. I was in a meeting for several hours on Friday morning concerning property revalve, which goes to kick in 2017, which is really, really important to all of us. But it appears, as a result of our revenues, that we can meet these from the revenue side. The challenges, prepare a balanced budget under some, again, challenging economic times. A couple of you all had asked me about where we stand comparably to other cities around the state of our size. And it was really an interesting question that we dug into, and there was no data out there specifically, but Rachel was really helpful in this. One of the challenges that we face is that our physical footprint is somewhat limited as a result of the annexation change a few years ago. And what I mean by that is, in terms of growing your tax base, unless we go out and just have some voluntary annexations, I think as going forward, the council is going to have to take a real hard look at infill development. Infill development has some real advantages now. Some of the disadvantages is people in our neighborhoods might not always like it, okay? Because I was one who, my first house I purchased on Hickory Avenue, where Harris Teeter is now located at. It was that great, big, beautiful wooded area. Bob remembers that battle. People in that community thought it was the greatest place because kids had forts built out there. People walked dogs. It was probably the prime, most economic development site in the city. But the advantage of infill is infrastructure is there. And it's, in terms of economic development, some real opportunities. So that's something I think that planning staff and technical review staff will take a hard look at going forward. We're funding the expansion of fire services. This is something that didn't happen overnight. I believe, Jay, if I'm not mistaken, this started 5 or 6 years ago with a study to look at what we can do with fire, how to meet the basic needs of fire services. We've talked about it. That's in place. The station should be constructed and should be online in the spring of 2016. The end result is we're hiring 15 firefighters. Now, we've allocated some money over the last 2 or 3 years to try to limit the impact on this fiscal year. I remember last year, Mebane had a tax increase to open a fire station up. You know, I think we got the direction from you all to go ahead and start preparing for this so it wouldn't be such an impact, and that's what we've been able to do. There's a substantial expansion of police services in this budget. Not one that's not needed. And as we'll talk a little bit later on, you will see they're not sworn officers. It's using some civilian staff to do positions that would free up sworn officers to do more work. It will also, we speak to using the expansion of technology to try to provide the highest level we can of certainly of police services. And then we're continuing our efforts to reduce our ongoing operational costs in terms of utilities, which is a big cost for the city, and we continue to invest in technology and areas to do that. Actually, you'll see this year there's a reduction in the cost with water resources in terms of energy costs as a result of some of the upgrades we've done to our facilities, which is good. State revenues. There's certainly some challenges there or some uncertain conditions. I think I was told last week by a young lady, a lobbyist, the staff, the council meeting, when you all spoke about the sales tax, evidently there was an editorial written, picked up from the Burlington paper statewide, and some of the comments you made. And I think Councilman Butler comment about adopting a county became known across the state a little bit. That was a situation that was presented. I think when that idea got thrown out by the Senate, no one really knew what the numbers were. And what had happened is cities across the state has at least asked good, solid, hard questions that made people say, now, what really will be the impact on communities across the state? And guys, it's significant. So another great example of this council in a public setting, in a public meeting, we talk about transparency all the time, asking good questions, but also very respectable questions of our local delegation. And I think we begin to make some inroads there. Now, where that's going to end up at, I can't promise you, but I think we certainly made some inroads there. We have continued, and I give the council credit, over the last number of years, we've continued to put capital amounts of money in to maintain facilities, especially buildings and roofs, and all this adds up when you don't do it for a while. It becomes a huge expense. The mayor recalled, Mayor, a few years ago when you had the big bond package in with the county system, how much it took to catch up just on basic services. And council over the years have been able to allocate funds that we kind of keep up with that. And then obviously absorbing the loss of privilege license. The privilege license revenue, that ship has sailed, guys. Now,
well, I'm sort of glad you brought that up. I wasn't going to bring it up tonight, but if you look back, House Bill, I think it was 739, was an opportunity that they were bringing, some of the House members were bringing back a proposal to at least have a registration in your city, and it was like a number was like $25 that was attached to it. And I noticed in the paper this weekend that both our representatives voted against that bill, Ross and Rydell. So I found that to be very interesting, that it's another opportunity for us to gather a little bit, not like it was with the big box stores and revenues, and the receipts, but both of them voted against the bill. So.
Well, I'll tell you what I think happened in that situation. The concept was that the idea was that there was an importance for the city to have the data about what businesses were open in your community. And the first thought was a charge up to maybe $100. Certainly, I didn't have the right to say this. The managers was not for any of this, because quite frankly, we felt like that was just saying, okay, we're going to give you $100, and that's basically gives you privilege license back, which that's nothing compared to the amount of money you're losing. That's absolutely nothing, guys. Unfortunately, what happened was there was some talk, and there were some people in the legislature, some elected officials, local elected officials had gone down and had actually used a wrong figure that one of our neighboring cities was budgeting to do that, and that number was really wrong, and that was taken by a legislature, and now another bill has been passed, not even allowed to do registration fees. The point is when we get information to Raleigh, we make sure we give the right information, and that really that came back to throw this thing in a real tizzy. So I remember my point is, if we get anything, that 25 or 50 or whatever it is, that's basically just to cover the cost of keeping up with what business is open in your community. That doesn't give you any new revenue.
Right. You can do that. That's a part of that new bill. You can actually do any type of registration you want to. No money can be attached.
Well,
and that's what our two voted against.
And there's several bills out there, and what's going to pass, and Mayor, and Mayor, I give you guys credit, the league. The young lady you've hired as the lobbyist is really outstanding, and that's something that can be misconstrued. That's not going to replace that $500 and some $1,000 we used to get.
No, you're right about that. That's not coming back. That's over.
Yeah, that ship is sailed.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, 15 firefighters.
new positions. We're converting 6 from another station. That's a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-week operation. Chief Smith is here, can answer questions. We've looked at this cost as a net cost of about $1 million for us to run that fire station a year. There's 4 police positions, 2 crime scene investigators, and Chief Smythe can speak to this. One of the things he's talked to me about since he's been here is that we're spending so much time with our sworn officers out doing crime scene work. We need to get them back on the street. One sergeant, in working with the helping with supervision of the gang task force, which is an effort between multi-jurisdictions. That's a really important group of people, can do some really important work for our community, especially for our young people. A CAD administrator, we've got a really good software system in the police department that we're not using effectively enough. We need someone to help that really can make it much more effective in terms of our response to various citizens' requests. An animal service position, which is eliminating one part-time person going to full-time. Obviously, that cost with animal services, and you'll notice this year, animal services has been taken out of police. Animal services is standing by itself. Note that animal services is a shared cost by all the jurisdictions in the city and the county and all the cities. Jess is here tonight. I can't tell you the strides we've made with her in getting volunteer groups together to come and be part of this effort. I think we may be the only city in the states doing animal services for everybody, but it is what it is. So,
let me interrupt you a second here. I think it needs to be noted, and this council and also the staff needs to get credit. I remember back when we first started talking about the new fire station and how many firefighters and how we were going to do this and pull it off. You know, we talked about closing a station or so. So we've been around the circle a couple of times on this topic. So congratulations for figuring it out where we didn't have to close any station, to the staff and also to the council for their input in reference to moving this along. So thank you.
That work was done by council, if you recall, when we used to meet at the Conoto Center.
Yep.
You remember we had looked at the possibility of closing Station 2, one of our older stations. And as we got into it, Chief Smith can speak to this, you've got to understand we've got a railroad track running right down the middle of this community. Access across tracks is important in terms of response time. And we appreciate the time and the effort you guys put into this. There's 2 recreation positions, a park manager and maintenance worker 2, which is eliminating some part-time positions and turning into that. Where we are in Parks and Rec is we need to spend time. We got a really good programming staff. Parks and Rec is changing. I got stopped yesterday about some of our, and you'll see in our revenue, you see a reduction in revenue in Parks and Rec this year because some traditional parks and recreation activities are just not there anymore. Adult softball has dropped off substantially. What used to be 2-night leagues are now 1-night league. People are doing different things. So what you see is a different effort with different services. If you had a chance to be downtown Saturday for that activity, Active City Streets, that was a really special, really good function. You're seeing more special events. You're seeing more nature-based activities. But also people want things maintained, and that's what these jobs are about, is trying to continue our maintenance efforts. Buildings maintenance does a wonderful job with us in Public Works, but there's just limited time in terms of what we do. General fund budget is based here. You'll note that animal services certainly is a part of that now. Animal services used to be in police, but now it's been taken as a separate standalone operation. It still works directly with police, don't get me wrong, and administration, but that's basically what the general fund is made up of. All right, revenues. If you go back and look at the history, except with the substantial growth in the mid-2000s out west, the tax-based growth has been about 1% a year. which equals to about $250,000. Sales tax revenues are projected up. And one can say, why? Well, sales tax numbers are up, and we've been fairly conservative in our approach, and this is still a conservative number, but with the move at the state level in terms of taking this economy more to a retail, commercial type economy, that was the idea behind sales tax itself. So we feel fairly comfortable with that number. Of course, we had to eliminate privilege license, which was a hit to us, which we knew going in that was going to occur. All departments was asked to present as much to the point of no-cut budgets as possible. Public safety in this particular year received a large majority of the increases in both police and fire. There was also an increase in the cost of workman comp funding and some minimal increases in health insurance, which will be shared by the employees in health insurance. Workman comp, that's a complicated issue. Actually, we met today. We went back over the last 8 to 9 years with workman comp issues. There's some good and bad years. We had really an unusual situation occur in 2012 that created some expenses to us. And as some of you all have been on council for a while, and certainly Bob is the attorney, know the workman comp issues are not a one-year cost at times. They continue if indeed the cases are substantial enough. We're working on that, and I hope to have some additional information on that for you as we go forward. How we got to make a real effort in terms of controlling that expense. That expense can get out of hand from a staff side. We continue to try to provide just a good, sound level of service to our community. Police is doing a really nice job in meeting in the various communities in terms of community policing efforts. The Burlington Connected program, I can assure you, is very strong and active, especially in the month of May when the grass grows. Minimum housing compliance is a challenge. There's restrictions, things we can and can't do, but we work especially an awful lot in transitional neighborhoods in an effort to try to maintain those neighborhoods for people there and keep the tax value, but also the quality of life. And also trying to take a look at economic development, and we will be meeting with you all here soon about more of a comprehensive economic development approach that I think the city will have to look at going forward. You know, how can we best benefit, use the advantages that we have. You know, years ago, we always said we have water, and we do, and that's a great asset, people. It might not be in my lifetime, but I can tell you in some people's lifetime in here, the water thing will be, again, that good of an asset to have water. You know, go visit California. But water itself does not create a significant amount of substantially new economic activities. So there's got to be more of a concentrated, more comprehensive effort. And it just can't be an industrial park, or just can't be please don't take this wrong, it just can't be a distribution center. It needs to be a corporative effort of a number of different opportunities that brings people to this community who want to live here, professional people, new people coming into our community, using existing resources. And that's something that will take some time, but I can assure you that we will begin that. We will work mighty hard on that going forward. Capital in the general fund budget, we have to read it all to you. Unfortunately, equipment are fairly expensive. Police replacements, 12 vehicles, street paving is $900,000, and we really get a good value of what we get for street pavement, and we'll continue to work in that area. And we're replacing some infrastructure at Fairchild Community Center. If you noticed last year, we were able to do that in North Park. Those buildings were built in the late 1970s. So there's some safety issues compared in those areas, and that's a fairly substantial investment for this year. There are groups here, or the groups who have asked for money from outside groups, the Chamber of Commerce, the Airport Authority, and the Downtown Corporation. Those funding requests are the same as been in the last 3 years. And the Downtown Corporation is also requesting for council approval of the budget to maintain their 16-cent property tax rate for the special downtown tax district.
Harold, do you think there will be a request from ACTA? Will they be able to leverage the 5307 funds that where we've given them money in the past? How do we think that's going to play out?
We did not get a request for the $26,000 we got last year. That was done with some of the ACTA work going in with 5307.
Okay.
We would remind council members as we start public transportation is that ACTA has different, and obviously Mr. Fawcett and Mr. Butler was on the board, they have different objectives. I think their least objective is the general purpose trips, which we've come to grips with $42 a trip. Right now they're charging $10. $32, that's coming from tax money somewhere. So the health trips, health-related trips, are still very much part of what they do, and ACTA actually started off as a rural-type program, if I'm not mistaken, Mike and Nolan. So we have not got a request from them for the $26,000 this year. Now I tell you what, we've taken that money, we've taken that money over and budgeted it in the public transportation fund, which is a new fund this year for the bus system, but that's there. And let me, while I'm thinking about this, let me say, as I've talked to you all about, it'll be, I think, advertised tomorrow, that we are having a joint meeting with the county commissioners next Monday night. It's May 11th. I think it's at 6:30 of the Family Justice System area, and there's 4 items of discussion. One is public transportation. One is the property revalve. The third is the facility for animal services, the large facility there, and 4 is, I'm going brain dead, economic development, joint use of economic development. Tools will be some items of discussion. To my knowledge, the last time we had a meeting with the county commissioners was over at the Canola Center, and believe it or not, it was on public transportation. I think it was 2008 or 9. So well, hopefully this will be a meeting that obviously be a public meeting, minutes, so forth, that we can get some conversation between the 2 boards on. The tax rate remains the same. We're continuing the police compensation package that was approved by council 6 years ago. There's the funding for expansion of police services, expansion of fire services, the workman comp money. What would happen there? We had a reserve fund that we've had to go into over the last several years to match that cost with workman comp, and that money now we're just projecting what the actual cost would be to maintain and level that cost out going forward. There's a provision for a salary adjustment in the budget right now at 2%. As I've talked to you all, we've given some options or some considerations, and those options equal the same amount of money. It's a merit, which is a part of our basic system, which would be from 0 to 4 with an average of 2%. A potential, that's one option. Another option is a 2% quote-unquote cost of living. You know, especially from my side, our concerns there is that the high-performing employee is not rewarded as the person who is not performing nearly as well. And then there's an option of a one-time bonus is another option. All that equals to about the same amount of money in terms of where we get to. That's where we're going to need direction from council on how we go forward with those options. That's certainly y'all's call. Health insurance, we see some increases in health insurance. Some of that's based on the year you're in. Some of that, I'm not sure how it relates back to the change in national health coverage. We've yet to get to that. We really have worked really hard on a third party, working with Blue Cross Blue Shield as our third party administrator. That's a pretty tough group in terms of working with hospitals in terms of getting discounts. It's been I think it's really very effective, but it's we'll see where healthcare is going. I apologize for the small writing here, but this gives you your figures in terms of your sources of revenue and your sources of expenditures. Revenues on one side, you'll note this, that if I'm not mistaken, about 68.7% of our revenues comes from real property taxes and sales tax. We hear a lot about property taxes. It's literally less than half of what our total revenue comes in. The sales tax number continues to be really, really important. That's why that argument or that discussion should always be in our favor. The other revenues are fairly stable, and the appropriated fund balance, balance appropriation, which is more of a balancing tool, that number has stayed that way now for a number of years, and we've been very fortunate. We've never had to get into that number and use that amount of money. On the expense side, it's laid out by department. There are four major departments that drives the cost of the city: police, public works, fire, and parks and rec. And we need to expect the absolute maximum workload out of those four departments. That drives us at probably, if I'm not mistaken, close to 72% of what our total cost is on the general fund side. Debt services at 5%. That's a low figure. That is a real low figure in terms of a cost, guys, for our debt service. Really low. That's something to always keep in mind. But those four departments is where, and they're all over the city. Don't get me wrong. That's why they are what they are. But those four departments are ones that I think our citizens ask for those services, and certainly our responsibility to provide a high level of service, with the money that council allocates us for us. And I always throw a pie chart in just for the heck of it, the revenues, and which is really just a same type thing. Revenue sources, and we break it down a little bit more here. We talk about vehicle taxes. The vehicle tax number, that change has helped us substantially. Our vehicle tax registration or our vehicle tax collections have gone up as a result of going out through when you pay for your license
tag renewal.
That's been a really good change at the state level. Sometimes we have issues with the state. They make some really nice changes too, and that's one of them. And the rest of those kind of shows you where the revenues come from the city, and it gives you a explanation. You'll see state share revenues. Power bill money is down a little bit this year because gas tax going down. Gas tax hurts us there. Revenues. The franchise and the excess tax and power bills, telephones, that's stable. Maybe going up a little actually. So these are what I call reliable revenues, and that's what makes this work in terms of reliability. You notice that the contracts that the legal departments involved with us so much on, whether it's with working with the various communities for traffic signals or monopole rentals, or we work with Alamance County on fuel purchases to do a number of things that helps us a great deal, and is also beneficial for the entire community. That's really the general fund side. Certainly, anytime you guys got questions, ask. If you wanted to ask now about general fund, please feel free to do so, and we'll be here. The staff can help answer any questions you may have. Feel free to do so.
So the budget's up how much from last year to this year?
2.48% on the general fund side, if I'm not mistaken.
And that revenue was coming from, for the increase, was?
Sales tax, increase from valuation of real property, the two primary areas that funds that amount of money.
And the expenses from my notes, the fire department, the police department, and
Fire and police are two of the largest increases this year. So of all the departments.
okay. Any other questions for Harold on the general side?
No, I will. Harold alluded to some comprehensive changes in economic development and how we approach that moving forward. I do believe that he is 100% correct, and that's going to be just as important as the pre-thought we gave to fire services and what we did there. That's going to be a sweeping change that we're going to need to look at. It's got to be. It can't be just one thing. It's got to be a dynamic approach, and it's got to be very relevant to how we want it to look and act and feel, and that's something that we're going to have to start planning for to do that.
Yeah, and it's going to take some creativity. We've talked about some options long term, but I think some outside the box. Bob, I'm trying to remember, what year did we pass? We got the local bill on the downtown incentive.
Probably 8 or 9.
That wasn't easy.
No. But to follow up on that point, we're going to need some legislative changes to give us the ability to be creative.
That's right.
And because we're sort of blocked in. I mean, all of you know all too well there are just certain restrictions on what we can and can't do. But I'm thinking at some point that we could approach them and maybe explore some kind of statewide bill where it would give us some flexibility to look at these things, because infill development and, building what we have. One thing about the infill development, and all of you know too, is like you said, we got services there. It's just a matter to put it on the books, increase the tax value, and do as much as we can. But there's still some other avenues that we're going to need some legislative help. So
I don't think we need to dismiss our location. Our physical location is a real advantage. The interstate corridor is helpful to us for that option, especially when you start talking about distribution. And we got, and I will say this, we're enormously fortunate to have, without question, the best district engineer in DOT and Mike Mills working with us.
Absolutely.
Ronnie's worked with him on the board. Bob and Jim and even David on the MPO, he is extraordinary to work with. Very fair, and he's been quite helpful on a ton of projects for us. And now I'm not talking about I'm talking about intersection improvements that can help you with infill development, not in all sections of the community, and also for some real safety issues of various intersections. So we're very blessed to have Mike being part of this thing, actually part of our team. We consider him, he's that good.
We'll just add one thing, and of course all of you know, he's continually looking after us.
Yes.
And I think that sort of characterizes it, because he's thinking of us, meaning Burlington, in our area all the time. And I know, Mayor, you know that, Jim does, David when he was on the TAC.
Mike lives here, always lived here. It's a family here, and he's very good.
Do we have a listing of sites that we have within the city that we could infill? I know we just did one that didn't work, but is there other properties out there like that in the acreage?
There are, and that site very well may work. Now, that action the council took at the last meeting was just not for an expanded number of units. That can still be built with by right of the number of units that was on the books there. Now, I actually met with those people on Wednesday following, and that's a great example. I'm not so sure people understood what was going on. I'm not sure there was a thorough understanding that night. There were certainly challenges in terms of the density that was brought up. But, I know I know, but many of you all mentioned the community and the developer work together, and I wish they could have. There could have been some things done, even smaller things that really could have made that work a much more amicable going forward, I believe. So I think that's part of what staff is going to have to be part of economic development. We're going to have to get involved and try to sometimes be a mediator amongst these groups to see what's good for the entire community. And because that infill is going to be really important to us. And we're also looking at other options in terms of sites for larger developments where we, and we're looking at that from not only from a geographical standpoint, but a topographical standpoint. The other thing now is huge, guys. We're talking about transportation, obviously roads, but fiber. Where's fiber located at in terms of so many of these companies in reference to? That's a big part of what they look at. So the question that several of you all have talked to me about is, where do we get and how do we get there instead of being responding to requests for potential services to actually going out and trying to be more proactive in getting people here. That's the comprehensive approach that at some point in time this board will need to take a look at how we may be able to do that. Any more questions on the general fund side? Water resources. Laid out there what we do. Construction, repair, facilities, plants, labs, composting, customer service, billing, debt service. Proposed budget is up 2.9%. We're asking and proposing an increase of 3% in water and sewer rates, which we still are a very affordable water and sewer service provider in the state. I can give you an average increase there of 5,000 gallons of use is $1.20 a month. We look at that in terms of workman comp as a cost. Our water usage is in sewer use, but primarily is flat. That's not a bad thing. If you think about where we were, where we've been at, having the cities are really important to us because other cities are good customers. They pay, and the amounts fluctuation is not substantial as we faced in the early 2000s. And we're one of the last ones, quite frankly, as this is something Frank brought up, we're probably one of the last ones in the county with true industrial customers. Your Glen Ravens of the world, and some of those, and we have a number of smaller manufacturing facilities here. They are industrial customers. Now, we do our rates are based on volume, especially on the water side, which is somewhat unusual, but we have an awful lot of water. Interest income, and we should have said this on the general fund side too, remains very low, and that's a challenge.
$105,000.
That is a challenge. If we could get 3% return on our investment, I can't tell you what else we could do in terms of an increase in infrastructure improvements in this community. And so much of that is indeed channeled through your local government commission, which I know we've made some comments to some of our state representatives, and we'll see where that goes. The 3% increase in rates will cover what's been proposed, and I'll also tell you what it gets you. It's going to get you funding for the second phase of the Harbor Interceptor. Well, what's happened over the last few years here, and Bob Passion, I'm going to let you kick in here. We've got the capital fund up now in water and sewer to about $4.8 million a year. And that number's there. And that's numbers what you need going forward to maintain where it won't be these big spikes that we used to have in terms of water and sewer increases. And that's been a really goal and objective to get it there. I know council has talked to us about this up and down or these big increases are so hard especially for businesses. The capital is funded at 100%. They didn't. It's a good group of people who come in here, and it's not financed. We look at workman's comp, the 2% salary adjustment is there, and again, health insurance, a minimum increase, because our employees would take part in the expense there. Here's an example of the Acadia Capital Projects. Phase 2 of Hot River Intercept is $2.5 million. And you just note the various costs for various line replacements and conversions and so forth within the system. Bob, what did you say? We have water and sewer lines will stretch from here to Philadelphia. Is that true?
That's correct.
A breakdown of the income, $110,000, 0.4% income on our investment. And look, this is not being critical of our staff. It's the best we can do the regulations that the finance works under. This is certainly not their issue. What is good about this, and if I let Frank speak to this, is you'll see from our sources of revenue, we are pretty much getting now, we're getting basic revenues that covers our expenses. In other words, the water rents, sewer rents, contract with Greensboro. This is not a creative revenue concept each year to make this thing balance. And that's been one of the biggest efforts we wanted to get stability in this account. And this account now, I think, has got stability. You know, when your auditors come in and speak to you at the end of the year, it's an enterprise fund. And this is the concept we've got to here. And this has been a real goal for us since 2003. For some of us, we remember the 22% increase. And then, of course, what we dealt with in terms of the plan updates with Jordan Lake over a 3-year period of time. And that's just, again, the breakdown of the way the money is spent. And it's Water Resources do a really, really good job in terms of their efforts, I can assure you. We will be putting substantial effort into, you've had a couple of situations, we've had some spills of education with our public on this. These last couple spills, one was industrial based, but the other one, quite frankly, was in residential communities. It's grease. How we can educate people just that grease is, we just got to keep the grease out of going down as drains. And we do what, Bob? We're cleaning 20% a year, flushing.
Correct.
Cleaning
20% of our lines.
Which is DENA requires 10%, I believe. So we're trying to be a little bit more proactive in terms of identifying areas that we very deep, we may have to clean more often. Also working with commercial establishments to make that effort to try to clean that situation up somewhat. I'll just give you an example of what the rates are based on 5 thousandths per gallon. Frank, if you would just kick in, that's the average customer. Tell them what average customer means.
Average customer would be normally a 3-person household, probably. And the next page shows a 2,500 gallon per month, which may be a 1 or 2-person household with children already gone from the household.
And when you get the utility bill, obviously it's more than just water and sewer. There's a stormwater fee, and also the solid waste recycling fee is on there. And that figure is based on the cost of us taking the solid waste to the landfill. Landfill cost the county charges us on a monthly basis. I'm not sure how this sounds maybe. If you ever work on your budget, any personal budgets, compare this cost to your cell phone cost, to your cable cost now. Maybe even the Deep Power cost, the Piedmont Natural Gas cost. Just interesting to sometimes go through that on a monthly basis, and I think this is a pretty high level of service. Transportation. projected start date, we believe sometime in spring of 16. We've made a substantial efforts at the federal level. We're in the midst now of putting bids out for parts of this process that we'll be involved with, everything from the branding to providers. Take a look at efforts. We're making some progress in terms of transport stations. Still substantial time is to be placed into transportation. Obviously, this year, and then Rachel Spelman, we'll be asking the council to appoint a transit commission. We've had applications come in. We'll remind you those applications will be coming forth to you all probably in the next few weeks. When we reach the deadline, that will, as the process was, it would be an advisory commission to the council as we get in this process and go throughout. You see, cost here is a capital cost, one-time capital cost of actually an awful lot here in terms of the transit. But this is primarily federal monies. Our share right now, as we figure, will be between $100,000 and $125,000. $26,000 may be in play. The actor had requested at one time, but we believe that would be what the operational cost would be for the 16 or 15-16 operational year. And that is including the transit tax that we were collecting in terms of the net cost, which goes into effect July 1 of 15. Stormwater rates, there's no change in that budget. Phase 2 is now in full-fledged compliance or not, so we're challenged on Phase 2 projects going forward. We're continuing to work with water quality. I see now the Falls of Lake now is dealing with the new potential Jordan Lake rules and regulations. As council said a number of years ago, this is an issue coming to your neighborhood soon. Basin by basin is coming. So we're seeing some interesting scenarios with water and sewer. We're seeing cities now beginning to square off against each other. We saw Fayetteville very upset that Raleigh was going to take additional waters out of Jordan. It gets back to inter-basin transfers, which is another Diener issue that could get at the federal level. We're pretty fortunate. We really are fortunate here not to be in that situation. Our lakes are full. Very full. But stormwater will continue to be in the various parts of our city. The project at Willowbrook Park will actually play in to be a real benefit to us in our stormwater issues. That will give some brownie points for us in terms of meeting the illicit discharge and detection and also control there. So that's a real positive. And this is a list of all the other funds that we're involved with. The total cost of what we talk about, the CDBG money, the rehab program. Shows the municipal tax service system revenues, the sewer capital reserve, money going to the water capital reserve, our revenues from Guilford McIntosh to Guilford County pays us for operation there, shows public transportation, shows the NPO money, general capital reserve. It talks about RICO funds. And another thing, obviously, that I will tell you, we will, especially with people, the members of the NPO here, obviously 5307 money next year will be very competitive in reference to the various groups in charge involved with that. But that's why the big part of that's based on public transit. So that's a bit interesting conversations with the various groups going forward. Questions?
Questions, comments for Mr. Owens?
I think Orange County is going to ask for money out of from my MPO this year, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, we had. Yeah. We had all the transit agencies, Orange County, ACTA, TTA, BART, all of the committee.
The key is to be sure we use it all. So it's all available. It goes back if we don't use it, so long as we're able to take care of our needs and for what we're trying to accomplish, if we can assist the others in getting in a position to use the balance of it, then everybody wins off of it, and we can cooperate interlocally.
Right. And it's important that these various groups, ACTA, can be parts of the players here. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, we met with PART. There'll be a parking ride lot. We still think to be built at the hospital site. The Cone's been very, very, very good to work with us there. But it's it'll be a competitive situation. Feel confident.
Don't forget, I asked for some information on the East Burlington route to the hospital as well.
I think that actually may be brought up next Monday.
Okay.
And it'd be interesting to see what the county, how they figure if that's a county function or not. What I've thrown out to them is we think would be the cost to do that.
You say that again, please?
Would be the cost to do that. We've dealt with council on the cost of running public transportation as we've brought to the table with our routes. If you had a fifth route, there's going to be a cost to that. Now, is ACC prepared to put money up, or is the county prepared to put money up? I can't speak to that.
Well, I think that the thing that, maybe I'm not, I think my concern was if you can get from East Burlington to AMRC, I assume the route's going to run that direction. Why couldn't we just run the route straight from East Burlington to ACC? That was my point.
Because then you're going outside your corporate district.
But that's an existing route. That's already a route going to ARMC.
Right.
That route's not going to go away.
That's right.
By going to ACC. So you're truly going to be adding. So that is a county function. That's going to be very important to the county. I, for one, too, believe that we should be able to assist in providing that services, but something as simple as a rental use tax could fix that.
If the county chose to go that route.
The county chose to go that route.
Yeah. And there's a lot of dynamics will be discussed there. If that's the case, it's going through Graham. Then people are going to say, well, Graham chose not to participate in the transit program. From the city side, I mean, what I've got to just bring up to you all, then are we going to be running public transportation through another city, and the city of Burlington taxpayers will be paying for it? So it's a complicated situation, and it'll be interesting to see what those. I think those conversations will come forth next Monday night, but we'll see where it all goes.
Any other questions for Harold? All right. Next on the agenda is the comments from our night's meetings. Mr. Owen.
Really, I don't have awful lots except to remind you about the May 11th meeting with the county commissioners, and there's a number of functions happening. I think Mayor Yulo of that tomorrow night, within the next week here, from senior games to a ton of things happening in the community. May's a really important month, and we'll keep y'all abroad, keep you involved in all those functions.
Any other comments? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, Stud. Congratulations.